Almost hitting 11:15. We're 30 seconds away from 11:15 in the morning. My name is Anil on the mic. We're now in the second hour of Traxx Momentum, and we bring you the special interview feature that comes to you by way of Health on Traxx. Every Monday mornings, we talk about things concerning our health. And today, we're going to talk about something that concerns the health and the mental well-being of not us, but our kids, children. We're going to explore and find out what happens and goes through their minds. And just something that my producer Azua gave me. She did some research for me, and I found out that there's a new report that estimates that 293 million children, teenagers, and young adults who are aged 5 to 24 around the world, or 1 in 10 young people, are living with some form of mental disorder. And these are the words the World Health Organization, they used to present a report on the mental health of the world's population in June 2022. So essentially what the numbers describe is 1 in 10 young people living on planet Earth are actually suffering from mental disorder. And to talk to us about this and to open up our perspectives and to help us understand this better, we have in the studios our special guest. She's a consultant clinical psychologist at UITM Private Specialist Center, which is an affiliate with the Faculty of Medicine at UITM. Please welcome into the studios Dr. Saw Joanne. Good morning, Doctor.
Morning.
How are you doing today?
Great.
Great. It's an absolute pleasure and an honor to have you. And just a while ago we were speaking. You said the last time you were interviewed was on TV, and then today you're being interviewed on radio. So you've ticked 2 boxes already today.
Yes, my pleasure.
So maybe you can just briefly tell us about yourself, Doctor, and then also start off by saying, why is mental health becoming a growing concern among children?
Very good morning to all. I'm Joanne, I'm practicing clinical psychologist, and I'm a senior lecturer. Okay, I'm doing both. So why are we talking about this topic when I was approached, you see? First of all, probably let me quote from WHO, what does mental health means? Yeah? Mental health is a state of mental well-being that enables people to cope with the stresses of life, realize their abilities, learn well and work well, and contribute to their community. So this is a definition on its own. So, but when we are talking about the children, so we are talking about mental health among the children, we would actually think about how well a child think, how well does a child regulate, cope with their feelings, and also how do they behave.
Yes.
So why is this a growing concern? Statistic has told us that. It is a growing concern. And if I could just quote from the Institute for Public Health 2020, in 2019, it was found that there are 424,000 of children having mental health problem in Malaysia.
424,000?
Yes. So with these statistics, it explains why is this something so worrying, because a good mental health will actually give the children opportunity, a good quality of life.
Yes.
They will be able to function well at home, in school, and also to the community. So with that statistic, with the understanding of mental health, because we are also thinking of, from this perspective, let's say, good mental health in childhood would means they reach the age-appropriate developmental milestone in terms of emotional and their developmental.
Okay.
Yeah, so means at the same time allowing them to look for their potential, to learn how to cope with their stresses, problems, and to have the ability to bounce back. So it is important for us to look into this area, because in one systematic review in 2021, a research that was done, it was also found that experiencing mental health problems before the age of 14, so it was associated with higher risk, increased risk of having mental disorder.
Does it got to do with childhood trauma as well, Doctor?
This would be part of it, because this is definitely a very big topic on its own. A very big topic that we could really discuss further.
Of course. And I'm sure a lot of parents who are listening right now would be figuring out, how do I look out for any signs if my child is undergoing some form of mental, disorder silently and not knowing how to articulate that problem. So what are some of the telltale signs, Dr. Joanne?
Yes. So when we talk about red flags, what are the signs and symptoms,
Yeah.
or when is the right time to seek treatment? So these are always the questions, in parents' mind. So in fact, many symptoms, I would say many behaviors, it kind of seen like a symptoms. Yeah, say shyness, says anxiety, nervousness, okay, or temper outbursts. It can occur. It can occur as a normal behavior during that developmental stage.
Okay.
But I probably would look into three perspectives,
Okay.
which is consistency, frequency, and intensity.
Consistency, frequency, and intensity.
So in other words, we need to look into how frequent does the symptoms or the behavior happen.
Right.
Is it happening always, very often,
Okay.
getting more and more? And the consistency of it would be, it has been happening throughout a pattern that we could see. And intensity would be, how big does the changes?
Okay.
The changes in the behavior, the changes in the emotions, or probably in children, they might seem to be agitated, but deep down they might be upset with their emotions.
Interesting.
Right? Yeah. So the intensity, how bad or how long do you need to take to calm them down? Probably. So all this would actually give us an idea. Okay, probably I need to seek help.
Okay, hold that thought, doctor. Let's jump in for a quick break. When we come back, we'll delve deep into the consistency, the frequency, and the intensity of identifying these telltale signs, or the red flags, as you mentioned, when it comes to identifying children with a mental disorder. Today on Health on Traxx, Anil on the mic is speaking to Dr. Joanne. She's a consultant clinical psychologist at UITM Private Specialist Center, which is an affiliate with the Faculty of Medicine. And today we're speaking about the child's mind. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back. Good morning to you and welcome back to Health on Traxx, right here on Traxx Momentum on Traxx FM. My name is Anil on the mic, and today in the studios we have a special guest. She's Dr. Joanne, who is a consultant clinical psychologist at UITM Private Specialist Center. Dr. Joanne, good morning and welcome back to Health on Traxx. Now, Doctor, before the break, you mentioned these three very important points, the red flags that parents should look out for. If I may just recap, consistency, frequency, and intensity. So if you can just touch on that again, what these essentially are, and how soon should parents, intervene and bring their children for immediate medical help, Doctor?
Definitely early intervention would actually bring significant changes in the child. So there would not be an exact time frame when you should bring, but rather looking into the behaviors, looking into the changes of behavior, looking into the three elements which I mentioned. So when it started to bring disruption or it has caused impairment in the child's functioning or even among the parents, so that is already a sign that we need to bring the child to medical attention.
Can you give us some scenarios, Doctor? Some examples. Maybe parents are not, it's too general of a statement.
Yes.
So yeah, put it in a
Definitely.
Sure.
So let's say your child has been withdrawn, feeling sad, not joining the activities, family activities, or keeping herself, say for a duration of a week to 2 weeks. So it's good for us to understand what is happening in school or what happened to her. This is where we have a good talk, a good conversation with our child. So this might happen in terms of the intensity. So it has happened for a week to 2 weeks. And in terms of duration as well, right? And the frequency, probably not a concern here. So this is the first time you encounter. So you might look into it, understand the scenario, understand what happened, talk to them, listen to them. So from there, you might be able to get more information. And it's never too early or too late to bring to a medical attention. It's always good, and we keep an eye on it and to observe. This would be one of the concerns that we might want to look at. Of course, we might have children coming in to say, I have stomach ache, I have headache, I do not want to go to school. Again, we need to find out, is there anything that happened in school? Was she being bullied at school? Or is there anything that she couldn't keep up to the teaching and learning in schools? That is also one concern, which we have a lot of I would say we've seen quite a number of cases, children struggling with learning disorders. So this is also a sign that we might want to look at.
Right.
Or speech delay.
Okay.
Or the child is not speaking yet, is still at the babbling stage when, probably the boy or the girl is already 3 or 4. So there's a delay.
Yeah.
Then this is also a sign that we should start to bring it to attention.
Okay.
Yeah. So this would be some of the, I would say sign and symptoms that we can look at so that we can get immediate help. Or even if it's not, we get exposure, awareness, and how do we deal about it? How could we best support and help our child?
Okay.
So there's no right or wrong here. Probably it's good for us to get information and get it observed.
Yes. Now, doctor, another thing I want to ask you, but internal issues, if it's brain development and things like that, well, that's something medically you can intervene, and that's something we can't help, right? But what if it's something that's within the control of parents, which is a child's upbringing or the environment that the child grows up? To what extent does this really impact their mental health, doctor? Because, parents are kids' first heroes.
Yeah.
Pretty much most of the time they replicate everything that parents do. If it's aggressive behavior from the parents, you pretty much, it goes without saying, surefire, you're going to have a child that's just raising his voice because that's the only thing he's learned from his dad, maybe.
True. I totally agree with you because for mental health, there is no exact cause. I would say there's no a definite reason or a contributing factor because it comes from multiple perspectives. It can come from biological, say genetic.
Right.
It runs in the family. So you actually carries a higher risk, I would say.
Okay.
Or psychological. The child's, like you say, or the social. How's the socio-economic status? How's the environment? How's the parenting? And that's how we started to discuss about the parenting styles.
Yeah.
Which the authoritarian parenting, the very strict one, caning, punishment. And we also have authoritative parenting, which are firm, strict, but yet providing support and love.
Yeah.
So this is how, whenever we look into a case, we always trace back to the childhood, which covers the upbringing, it covers the social economy. We look into the environment. We look into the child's personality, how they were brought up. We have child who was so anxious, so worried because they were constantly under pressure and worrying what's going to happen the next moment, the next day.
Yeah.
So this is what happened. So it actually brought up to adolescence, adulthood, and it even brings into later in their life.
Yeah.
So definitely it matters. Not a definite one cause per se, but rather a combination of a few factors here. Because when we talk about mental health or mental health disorder, it always comes, there's no definite.
Yeah.
When there's definite, I wouldn't say it's easy, but at least we know where we can look at. But when it's mental health, we target it on few perspective.
Okay.
Yeah.
I have a friend, a dear friend of mine, who has a very low self-esteem. He's as old as I am. And at one point when I had a conversation with him and I tried to ask him, what really led to you having such a low self? But he's a top-tier student, scored well in school, good-looking chap, definitely the kind of guy you want to go and have a cup of tea with, really great. But he really lacked self-esteem. And at points where he really needed to voice his opinion out and put his opinions across, he would resent, he would hold it back. And he said his childhood was clouded with moments where his parents or his older siblings would just shun him down and correct him. And they would, and he was raised in such a way where he was told that if you do so and so things, I will yell at you and humiliate you in front of everyone as a child. Your message to parents who do that to their kids, doctor?
I think this is really important. You raise up an important issue here, which this is a big effect in life.
Yeah.
So what I would say is listen to our child. Listen. We tend to talk more, but do listen. Validate their emotions, validate their feelings, and also acknowledge their accomplishment. We don't do that, We are just so stingy with our praises, we don't get into this track.
Right.
But we just need to do this. Validate their emotions, normalizing the feelings.
Feelings.
It's okay to feel stressed out. It's okay to feel sad. It's okay to feel that you're worried. This is important for us to normalize the behavior. Instead of shut them down,
Yeah.
we should normalize the behavior and talk to them, listen to them, and teach them how do we actually cope in a healthy manner. So this is very important, right? So with that is how we acknowledge the emotion. So probably I could just trace back to the earlier on when you asked me, so how are you today? So I said, great.
Yeah.
So this is very typical of us, isn't it?
Yeah.
So how are you? Oh, I'm good. I'm fine. I'm okay.
Yeah.
But we don't explore further. How was your emotion throughout the day?
Right.
How was your emotion? We don't explore further than great, okay, fine, not okay, bad.
Yeah.
But we don't go further than that.
Right.
So this is where we should go further and explore the ups and downs throughout the day.
Right. Right.
And this is how we communicate to our child.
How are you feeling emotionally today, doctor?
Oh, then we have to go all over again. Huh? Yes, true, fair enough.
Yeah.
I was anxious earlier on before stepping in.
Of course.
But once we have a conversation, I go, I feel comfortable.
Yeah.
So this is how we go about it.
Sure.
It's fine to feel anxious, isn't it, right?
Yeah.
So this is how we regulate. How do we regulate our emotion, which I think is a bit lacking. I mean, in terms of practicing with parents and child, the interaction, the one-on-one talking. Sometimes we need to speak the child's lingo.
So speaking to a child's lingo, maybe an expert would do it better than a parent who doesn't have any experience. So who can parents go and seek help from, doctor, if they identify these three things that you mentioned, the consistency, frequency, intensity, and the telltale signs?
Yes, this is great. I mean, it's a good question because we always say, okay, my child is not well, so I'm going to bring my child to see a doctor. But again, when it comes to this context, I would say probably not the child. Probably I should see the parents. Like you say, they are the first hero.
Yes.
They are the shelter. They are the individual where they will model them. They will learn
They learn
from
how
them.
to be human beings from observing what the parents do.
Exactly, because children on its own is a blank slate of paper. It is how the parents color it, right? Yeah. So to me, probably it's good to talk to the parents to understand the dynamic in the family, to understand how it was at home, and how do you observe the symptoms, and how much time do you spend with your child. Probably we can get to know more.
Okay.
Instead of course, we need to see a doctor for this, right? Yeah, but that's more that we can, which is first. Where do parents seek help?
Yeah.
We can't deny the search engine.
Yes.
The very
Of
first
course.
one.
Mr. G.
They'll start,
Yeah.
Googling and looking into information. That's good. That's creating awareness. Yeah, you started looking into it, like
Okay.
what and where went wrong.
You're proactively doing something.
Yes, you are doing something. That is good. But what about secondly, we always have a group, parents group,
Yeah.
There's a lot of groups over there,
Support
but
group.
need to be very careful with it. I mean, get a legit one. Yeah. And third, probably you can speak to a counselor.
Which is what I wanted to ask you, because we've heard of psychologists, we've heard of psychiatrists.
Yes.
We hear mental health counselors. So where do we go?
Okay. So this is another confusion, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Fair enough. Everyone confuses with what are the roles and who should I see? So put it this way.
Who do I take my child to?
Yeah, put it this way. It's never wrong, even if you go on the first stage, I would say, talk to your family doctor. It's perfectly fine. Talk to your family doctor, and the family doctor would advise accordingly and refer you to the correct person.
Okay.
Rather than you going all over and hunt on your own. But it's fine unless okay, this is what happened. I would like to see a clinical psychologist to run an assessment, to run probably an IQ assessment, to run a developmental assessment, and further on a therapy.
Okay.
Okay? Or we can see a child psychiatrist as well
I see.
to get into the medical attention. And because this is a very collaborative, I would say, we work together side by side. Even if you bring your child to see a psychiatrist, the psychiatrist will refer to a psychologist. Hey, can you do an IQ assessment for me to complement the whole puzzle? Okay. Or even if the first hand is a counselor, a school counselor would be the first liner in terms of school children.
Yeah.
They will say, okay, probably your child needs to see a clinical psychologist.
Okay.
And there I go.
I see. Okay. So now we know the respective roles that these play. And we also understand it's a collaborative effort.
Yes.
So the best bet would be just to visit your local GP, general practitioner, talk to them about what your child is going through, and then they would signpost you to the right direction.
True. I mean, if we do not know the direction
Of course,
yet.
of course. Thank you. Doctor, let's jump in for another quick break. We're having a great discussion over here, a very interesting one to discover our children with Dr. Saw Joanne. She's a consultant clinical psychologist at UITM Private Specialist Center and Health on Traxx. We'll be right back after a short break. Don't go anywhere. Good morning and welcome back to Health on Traxx. I'm Anil on the mic, and today with me in the studios I have Dr. So Joanne. She's a consultant clinical psychologist at UITM Private Specialist Center. Very bright doctor who's been talking to us about how we should be communicating and interacting with our children so that they grow up to be fine young human beings, fine human beings. And if they do have any issues growing up, what we can do to address these issues so that they don't suffer in silence, isn't it, Doctor?
Yes,
Right.
totally agree.
Doctor, welcome back to Health on Traxx. Now, Doctor, can you explain to us how are mental health disorders diagnosed in children, and what are the treatment options that are available?
Okay, so let's narrow down to the child seeing a clinical psychologist, yeah? So in fact, there's lots of myth out there, how diagnosing was done and so on. But for us to diagnose a child with mental health disorder, it needs a very comprehensive evaluation. So it will begin with a clinical interview. We need to go all the way into their developmental milestones, getting information of the symptoms, getting the history of the presenting illness, getting into the family history, getting into the educational history. We need to get into very thorough information. We need to get first-hand information, and there we go for observation. We observe the child. We discuss with the child how does the child behave in different settings, yeah, and we assess the symptoms, which we can use questionnaires, rating scales, or a set of psychological batteries to conduct that. Not so much of electrical wires and so on.
Yeah, just to touch on very quickly, Doctor, questionnaires. This is something that we've all done. You go online, you can find a bunch of questionnaires.
Yes.
Some people say that the outcome is inaccurate, maybe because we've not answered the questions truthfully.
Okay.
But to what extent are these questionnaires accurate, Doctor?
Okay, so we need to take, of course, online. I mean, I'm nowhere to command, but probably we need to make sure that the questionnaires are validated questionnaire. The questionnaires are meant for clinical use.
Yep.
Rather than you play on the Google, on the internet, your IQ might be 90 today, and the very next day your IQ become 120. That's not valid, and the validity is being questioned.
Okay.
So, but when we are using questionnaires, we assess how it was at this point of time. We do have psychological batteries, which measures totally in terms of IQ, in terms of a checklist of behavior. So probably I would say different kind of questionnaires.
I see. Okay.
If I would say. So we run that on symptom check.
Okay.
Then we go for, as I said, a collaborative medical. We need to rule out if there's any medical condition, which, pediatrician, clinical psychiatrist can help us. So we need to rule out if there's any underlying medical condition. Okay. Last but not least, a collateral information. After speaking to the parents, seeing the child, observing and playing with the child, we might need collateral information from teachers, daycare centers. So we might get all this information in to ensure that the child actually behave consistently in two different settings. Because for us to come up with a diagnosis, we don't say that, just because the boy is always on the go, running around and so on. But in school, he's perfectly fine. No complaint.
Yeah.
Then we are saying that probably it's a behavior issue.
Okay.
But if it happens across different settings, then we might be worried it is something in him. Then we might worry if is it ADHD? We might be concerned of that, right? So a collateral information will be really important for us to get all the information, different setting, different source, and put it up all together with our standardized instrument, psychological instrument, our clinical judgment, our observation. with the collated information, that's how we came into a diagnosis. Because it's not fair for us to simply coming up with a diagnosis.
Absolutely. A thorough assessment, a
Yeah.
thorough holistic assessment before you can, say that this child is suffering from some form of, I really like that. Because, you don't want to just put something on the child when it's maybe just a minor issue, isn't it? What sort of treatment is available, doctor, for this?
Okay, when it comes to treatment, we need to look into it holistically as well. So the very first one would be, of course, we always say, okay, that's medication. Pharmacotherapy. Okay, and there's also psychotherapy, which we provide therapy to children. Okay, say for instance, if I could just quote one, cognitive behavior therapy, which we tap into their thoughts, whether if they have some negative automatic thoughts that causes their worries, they're anxious, okay, or we look into their behavior as well. So we tap into this when we look into cognitive behavior therapy.
Okay.
Yeah, and why is it multidisciplinary? Because we might refer a child to get treatment from an occupational therapist. Getting occupational therapy to help with their sensory, to help with their fine and gross motor skills, to help with their social skills, to help with their attention. So this is part of the therapy as well. And there's also coming in speech and language therapy.
Okay.
Where the child could actually learn in terms of, the words, vocabulary, speaking, articulation, when there's a delay. So this is actually, as I said, a multidisciplinary working together, especially for children with neurodevelopmental disorders.
Okay.
It works really well here. And of course, last but not least, when it comes to education or probably and early help, I would say it's also there's program in schools, EIP.
EIP.
Yes, it's a program which helps, children with delay.
I see.
With delay or with difficulties, So that's how where they put in, speech therapies, occupational therapies, and they learn as well and to prepare them to school. So this is also one of the program that are, I would say, helpful in a way for the child. So this is also one of it. So in fact, I would say it's always best when we work together.
Of course.
Yeah. So these are a few of.
So there's no silver bullet. There's no one silver bullet for us to address an issue of mental health concern for a child. It's a collaborative effort.
Yes.
And parents need to play a vital role as well to put in that effort, right?
Yes, definitely.
It requires a lot of effort to correct this issue. Otherwise, they will grow up and, like I said, suffer in silence. Dr. Joanne, thank you so much for setting aside your time. I would love to ask you more questions, give you some scenarios for you to give feedback on for effective parenting, but time is of the essence. I'm going to give you the floor right now for you to look into the camera. Your final message for parents out there who are parenting, how can they do a better job at raising the kids, Doctor?
I would say spend time. Say 10 minutes to 15 minutes a day with your child, one-on-one.
Yeah.
Understanding the day, talk to them, speak their lingo, validate their emotion, normalize the feelings, and also acknowledge. I would say sometimes, perhaps we should allow our child to hear us bragging about them.
Okay.
It's an accomplishment, even small ones, So this is actually to boost their self-esteem.
Celebrate their wins, huh?
Celebrate their victories, even small ones. And this is how we reinforce the behavior. We reinforce and also teaching them, putting in all together the good coping mechanism.
Yeah.
So time is that, is an essence. So yes, here it is. A daily 10 minutes will do great.
10 minutes a day.
At least a 10 minutes
will
a day.
make a difference in their
definitely.
lives. Dr. Joanne, thank you so much. You have a lovely day. Thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome. All right, I just wrapped up a conversation today with Dr. Saw Joanne. She's a consultant clinical psychologist at the UITM Private Specialist Center, and today she spoke to us about the child's mind and parents to look out for three things: consistency, frequency, and intensity, which are the red flags in any mental disorder that their children are suffering. And the first line for them to go out and seek help is to go to your local general practitioner and speak to them, and then perhaps they'll be able to signpost you to the right person so that your child gets the help that they need.